I'm Peter Austin, that is a natural-born smoker, and this is interesting. I'm not gonna lie, while I normally try and pick video topics that feel at least a little bit insightful or educational, this one is mostly just me saying, look at this absolutely horrifying thing that you might not have seen before. I hope you enjoy it. A few months ago, in my video about water hags, the last time I presented from the sofa, in fact, I briefly spoke about the infamous public information film Lonely Water, and I can't say I was surprised to receive quite a few comments asking me to look at a number of other traumatic health and safety campaigns. God knows there are plenty to go at. But rather than cover the stuff that you so often see in this context, the eerie animation style of Charlie Says, that girl who screams, "Jimmy!" while he fatally retrieves his frisbee, the unaired instructions for what to do if one of your relatives dies while you're all hunkered down in your Cold War fallout shelter, I thought the best thing I can do is share with you an ad that's sometimes overlooked, despite it being possibly the most unusual and strangely stylish public information film that Britain has ever produced. This is the Natural Born Smoker campaign. The two ads that made up this series were aired on British television screens from 1985, 3 years after the release of Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, which, as you'll see, was very obviously a source of inspiration here. Public information media like this is almost always unmistakably of its time, instantly dateable by the fashions, the voiceover, the production quality, but despite its age, Natural Born Smoker's impressive depiction of a far-off dystopia gives it a uniquely timeless quality. The establishing shot of the first two ads depicts a very Scott-esque open-plan living space. Out of the window, aircraft or spaceships soar over a bizarre city skyline, and clearly the soundproofing industry has taken some sort of major hit in this timeline because the noise of their engines is deafening. And then we meet the star. This is the eponymous Natural Born Smoker. The idea of the ad is that this is what humans might look like if they evolved various features to aid their smoking habits. And it is, quite intentionally, the stuff of nightmares. Accompanied by a haunting soundtrack and the dreadful wheezing of the smoker, the list of adaptations is as follows.
A larger nose to filter out impurities, self-cleaning lungs, a highly developed index and middle finger, extra eyelids to protect the eye from irritating smoke, and of course, an inbuilt resistance to heart disease, lung cancer, and thrombosis.
And the tone of the narrator is absolutely pitch perfect here, oozing with a wry irony, particularly in his delivery of
smaller ears, because they don't listen,
and of the punchline.
Unfortunately, the first natural-born smoker hasn't yet been born.
But the second ad is no less disturbing. Here we see that our frightening subject is also taking care of a baby. The narrator tells us that the child has been exposed to second-hand smoke from birth to encourage early learning, and then,
when it's older, sent to school to be taught the correct way to inhale cigarette smoke by a group of people called friends.
Interestingly, at this point, the ad actually diverges into two slightly different versions, one of them having language aimed specifically at teens. The adult edition states that any child who expresses feelings of dizziness, nausea, or fears of premature death will be ridiculed until they conform and develop a fully fledged nicotine dependency. It is a bit of a mouthful, and so the teens got the slightly simpler,
any child who feels dizzy, sick, or afraid of cancer will be ridiculed until they conform and become a regular smoker.
And then, as with the first film, it just ends. There's no on-screen tagline spelling out the fact that smoking is bad for you, in case you hadn't already worked that out. No government logo, nothing. It just fades to black. And I think the films are all the better for it. They'd have been a shocking interruption to someone's TV viewing the first time they saw them, and I think the lack of closure, the abruptness of the ending, just sort of leaves the images hanging in the back of your mind, unresolved. And that's exactly what the government would want out of a public health message, at least as far as the message itself is concerned anyway. Although when it comes to the actual imagery, I don't think anyone wants this lingering for any longer than necessary. Beyond a handful of credits, there's precious little information out there about this campaign, other than its critical acclaim. It apparently won silver at the 1986 British Arrows Awards, that's an advertising awards body, and it's also frequently included in lists and articles about the most harrowing public information films. And quite right too. I'm sorry if you were hoping to see me standing in a nice green field in front of a few cows today, and instead had to look at and listen to this. But for one thing, it's unfortunately been raining a lot recently, and also, I'll say again, the stunning visual style of this campaign is a thing of nightmarish beauty, and in spite of how unnerving it is to watch, I'm only too pleased to do my bit in preventing it from fading into obscurity. I've been Peter Austin, and that was interesting. And if you've not yet seen that video about the river hag Jenny Greenteeth and the Lonely Water public information film, you can check that out right here.